Lake Region, small burger. I did Auburn now. Tonight. Yeah, right. Which I was unfamiliar with. But then, I mean, there's girls back when I was, my dad and I had a real discussion. I said, Dad, I want to see, I'm not buying you gold teeth, son. But, that being said, if a young man comes up, do it with this hand, not this hand, this is the shaking hand. And he comes by, and I said, no, sir. Look at me like I was just put your hand in your mouth. I'm not shaking your hand. He goes, he said, kind of, you seen the light bulb go off. We haven't seen each other since DC. Where you been hiding? That's right. Well, you know about that. Yeah, been working hard. One week ago.
My little brother played. He was the offensive coordinator.
Really bad.
Really bad.
So, really needs to figure one they want to take the play.
They got big, and I was
They had a good football team.
I graduated from 95.
He was the smallest. He was a fire plane. He was
He was the pulling guard that
yeah.
Afternoon. Good to see everybody. Thanks so much. It's great to be back in Grady Judd country, Polk County. You know, I was talking to some folks, and I've had a lot. You know, we did the temporary I-4 expansion like 8 months early, and people, it's helping, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about that. It's I-4, Polk, Osceola, Orlando area. I mean, it can be bad, but when all the stuff's done, I think the everything we've done in I-4 so far that's completed is good. But man, this part is it can be tough when you have to be in those roads. So I'm really glad we're able to do that. We're joined here today by our Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, of course, as I mentioned, our great sheriff from Polk County, Grady Judd. We also have Ryan Petty, who's on our State Board of Education. We have Senators Blaise Ngolia, Tom Wright, and Colleen Burton. And Florida House Representatives Bill Partington and John Albert. So I want to thank everybody for attending, and we've got some great bills to sign today. One is continuing with our commitment to school safety and student safety. And I think most people remember in 2018, we had the tragedy at Parkland down in Broward County. After that, I wasn't governor yet, but after that, there was a movement to say, okay, you know, what went wrong on school security? There was also things, quite frankly, that went wrong with the law enforcement. That's why I removed the sheriff of Broward when I became governor back in 2019, because there was no accountability for the failure. You got to have accountability. So we did that, but then we really got to work on doing whatever we could at our disposal that would work to increase school security, and I think Florida's done more than any state in the country over these last 6 years. So Ryan tragically lost his daughter in that attack, and other parents from Parkland really got involved in this school security and school safety effort, and it's had a huge positive impact across the state of Florida. We know a lot of the things that have been done. One of the things that I know Grady's been supportive of is the Guardian program. And the Guardian program, you know, people say, oh, well, you shouldn't have teachers be with wearing guns. First of all, the Guardian program is voluntary. No one has to have Guardian. I mean, but if you can, but I'll tell you this, if you're a school that has Guardian, that's going to be a disincentive for someone to want to target your school. They go to where there's soft targets. They go to where they're not going to get resistance. So whether it's having school resource officers, whether it's supporting the Guardian program, these are ways, yeah, obviously if it ever came to something really terrible, you want to have some folks there that are going to fight for the good guys, but I think the biggest thing is it deters it from happening. These guys want to go to gun-free zones where they know that there's not going to be any major resistance. And so I think Guardian is good. I think it increases safety, but I also think it really changes the calculus of some of these guys in terms of what they're doing. So we've worked hard on that. We've also worked hard by creating Fortify Florida, a mobile suspicious activity reporting tool that allows schools to obtain reports about suspicious activity. Unfortunately, we see that from time to time in a variety of contexts. And one of the things that really stuck out for me with Parkland is after Parkland, what happened, immediately before any reports on who did it, everyone in that community knew it was this guy. Because that's who they suspected, because he had so many red flags and no one wanted to do anything about it. That's not the way we want to do things here in the state of Florida. And as part of that, to address threats when you see them, Florida has implemented the Florida Harm Prevention Management Model. This is a threat management system that identifies and immediately responds to students who may pose a risk to themselves or to others. And when you look at some of these people that have done horrible things, usually there were warning signs. Usually there were red flags. And if you have an intervention, that could obviate, that could totally prevent something from happening in the future. And so I appreciate people that have done that. There have been more than 30,000 school personnel that have been trained in this innovative system across the entire state of Florida. One of the things that we also have to come to grips with, and I know a lot of people in Florida have been working hard on this, is problems with students who lead to problems and risk to safety, oftentimes there's a mental health component to that. Usually someone's just well adjusted. They're not all of a sudden going to go up and pose a major risk to their fellow students or to the teachers or the administrators. And so since I've been in office, we've invested $2.5 billion in mental health support for schools. We've also created a new requirement for mental health services and training, including at least 80% of all school personnel complete youth mental health awareness and assistance training. And this includes, in terms of the money, record amounts that we've invested across schools throughout Florida, as well as things like school hardening, which we've done, which has been something that's really important. It goes to making these things uninviting targets. So there's been a whole host of things that we've done through the years. I think the legislature's been very generous in providing support for the school districts in this. And so that kind of brings us here today for this first bill, which is on school safety. This bill expands upon the Guardian program to authorize child care facilities to utilize guardians, just like our public schools and private schools do. Child care facilities may now partner with local sheriff office to have teachers and other personnel properly trained with firearms and other school safety measures to protect students in the event of an emergency. And I think that's going to be something that people are going to like. We had previously, in prior legislation, did legislation that had all doors and gates in a school needed to be locked at all times. And while that was well intended, schools pointed out, hey, there may be some problems about moving around. Can you do? So I think what the legislature did is they tweaked this. They made sure that, yes, we want to be able to create locks to keep bad guys out, but we also want it to be practical. We want to make sure people are able to do their daily tasks and get to where they need to go. So that was a requested change, and one I think that will likely be very, very effective. So we are continuing to advance the ball there with school security. Now, one area that we've also led on, in addition to school safety, is on the issue of swatting. So swatting is when people will call in a bogus 911 call to usually somebody's residence. They will lodge a complaint of people's lives being in jeopardy, that they're being dangerous. A lot of times they'll say there's weapons. And so that, if you got a legitimate call on that, the Grady's people would go and they would try to secure that area and prevent the harm to anybody. But in this case, there's nothing there. There are people there that are innocent. Law enforcement doesn't know that. They think it's a serious call, so they're going with that in mind. You get woken up or something and react, and someone's breaking into your house for no reason. You don't know that it's police. You could then do something. So it creates a really, really serious risk for public safety. It creates a risk of life and limb. And we have had instances where people have been killed across the country because of these swatting instances. Now, we led the effort in Florida in 2021 to combat swatting. I signed a bill that established felonies for swatting offenses that lead to damage, injury, or death. And we also required restitution to be paid by swatting perpetrators. And while that has been helpful, it has not been fully sufficient. We continue to see these swatting activities happen across the country and even in the state of Florida. Recently, they have targeted people that are influential in conservative media. We had a fella in Tampa named Benny Johnson that was the target of a swatting incident. Someone called the police and made a fake report, and law enforcement did basically a raid on his home as a result of that point. These are not victimless crimes. One, people can get hurt by doing it, but even if nobody's hurt, it's taking resources and time and manpower away from actually doing the job that we want our law enforcement and first responders to do. So this is something that needs to be addressed to the fullest extent of the law. The bill I'm signing today will increase penalties for people that are making these bogus police reports. If you SWAT, you are going to get hit with serious criminal offenses. This has enhanced penalties across the board. It also has enhanced penalties for repeat offenders. It lowers the threshold where what would be considered a habitual felony offender, making it a felony after 2 or more convictions for unauthorized use of emergency communication services. The bill also includes a definition of conviction, which includes determinations of guilt resulting from a plea agreement or trial, regardless of whether adjudication is withheld or a no contest plea is entered. It also mandates that courts order restitution, not just restitution available. Courts must order restitution from convicted individuals to cover the costs incurred by public safety agencies and any victims affected by these false reports. I mean, it could be something, maybe the police breaks the door down because they're told that there's a crime in progress. You're not going to necessarily knock unless if you think someone's about to get shot. So you're going, well, okay, well, who's going to pay for that? Well, now the perpetrator is going to have to pay for that, who made the call. And restitution must include full payment of any costs incurred by the agencies, as well as prosecution and investigation. So when we prosecute you, we are also going to bill you for having to go through with that. We also have victim compensation to any victim who suffers damage or injury as an approximate result of lawful conduct arising from the emergency response. So swatting has no place in the state of Florida. And I think when you have swift penalties, strong penalties, and you administer them swiftly, you will deter it from happening in the future. And finally, we have House Bill 1099, which focuses on the arrest and detention of individuals with significant medical conditions, which is an initiative of local law enforcement that passed during this most recent legislative session. This bill supports our law enforcement officers across the state by giving them more discretion when dealing with individuals with significant medical conditions. We're a law and order state. We want to make sure we're protecting the police officers as they're doing jobs in very difficult circumstances. And so I look forward to signing these bills momentarily, but before I do that, I know that we have some great comments coming up from some of our speakers, and we'll start with Manny Diaz, our Commissioner of Education.
Thank you, Governor, and it's great to be here in Polk County today. There's no doubt that Florida has established a blueprint on school safety that many other states are now following. And I do want to give props to Sheriff Grady Judd, because when we were crafting the original legislation in the Florida legislature, the actual genesis of the Guardian program comes from a model that was given to us by Grady Judd that was being implemented right here in Polk County. So thank you, Sheriff. That's what a change, right? Now parents demand it. Now we feel a lot better about our schools. So I really do appreciate that, and I'm sure all of our families, our parents, and our students do too. Through the course of this process, Florida has enacted legislation to implement the recommendations of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission and extended the sunset on the commission to continue making recommendations to improve school safety. We've worked with public schools to implement the panic alert system. We'd required all safe school officers to complete crisis intervention training and establish our anonymous reporting tool, which is called Fortify Florida. And it's required the districts provide students and parents with training how to use that application. Required the district certify that at least 80% of the school personnel have received mandatory youth mental health awareness training. This goes back to what the governor was mentioning. A lot of or most of these problems have a mental health component. And the best way to deal with any of these issues is to deal with them early and to cut it off before it becomes a crisis. We've promoted firearm detection canines in Florida schools and invested record amount in school hardening and mental health, as the governor has mentioned. My team and I have met with people from across the country to show how Florida has addressed school safety. And I always caution, I always say, no matter how good we feel about what we're doing here in Florida, this work is never done, because you're never at 100% and it keeps evolving. And that's why I'm thankful for the legislature passing this bill and for the governor signing it here today, because we continue to evolve and learn and get feedback from the practitioners in the field. And unfortunately, we learn from other incidents that occur across the country. I'm proud that this year we hosted our first national summit on school safety. in which we had 20 states from across the United States come to Florida, in Orlando, Florida, to learn about the Florida blueprint and the things that we have done here in Florida. I also I want to thank Ryan Petty, who's also a member of our state board, for helping us with that. He's really dug into school safety, and he's well respected across the country in this field. Utah is one of the examples of these states. I actually had the opportunity last year to travel to Utah and work with their legislature and their officials in passing legislation that mimics ours. And so now they're implementing a lot of the things that you're seeing here in Florida, and other states are constantly calling and coming over. And again, we're proud that that national summit will happen again next spring, and we're looking forward to having more of those states here. Unfortunately, there's always new threats to our safety in our schools, and we're lucky that we have a governor who clearly doesn't rest on his laurels, and that's why we're here today. He talked about Senate Bill 1470, which builds upon that success, updating components of the Guardian program to include child care facilities, establishing a centralized system for panic alarms. We have to have panic alarms that work, right? And so when we see problems in the system, it's not about having pride or ego. It's about saying, what can we do better and make sure that these things work? We don't want to have parents and families having a false sense of security. It's clearly defining the requirements for safety measures within different areas of the school and school safety training for substitute teachers. The governor mentioned that again. When the bill was passed last year, sometimes in the legislative process, there are details that just you don't get to because you don't have the full scope. When you walk through, having the experience of having been in a school building, having worked in a school building, we all know that every building is different. We all know that there are doors that don't need to be unlocked because there's a second perimeter. And that's basically what this bill does. And I'm proud to say that this received feedback not only from our sheriffs, but also from all of our school districts. The other thing is Fortify Florida, as the governor mentioned. We have an alert system here in Florida where parents, students have to be trained, where it's the see something, say something mentality. Unfortunately, this year, we had a large uptick in false reports. And again, that creates a problem because it uses up those resources and it bogs down the system of where we can respond where there's a real emergency. But I will have to say that not only the strengthening in this bill, but thanks to sheriffs, all our sheriffs and sheriffs like Grady Judd, our law enforcement has taken that very seriously, and there have been several cases where students have been prosecuted for this. The message to parents is you need to understand how severe that is, and here in Florida we take it very seriously. And again, this bill goes to further extend that. So I want to thank the governor for his steadfast commitment. I want to thank our partners that are here from the Senate. Commitment to school safety never ends. Thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Grady.
Thank you very much, Governor. It's my honor to be with you today. And you know, when you speak of leadership, when you speak of someone who moves the state forward, you always think of Governor DeSantis. Listen, it's easy to set up in Tallahassee and just go along to get along, but that's not our governor. Our governor makes good things happen. And I coach every day that good things don't just happen, good people make good things happen. I'm excited to be with you today. I'm excited that the legislature passed this legislation dealing with swatting and calls. Now, I've got to show you. The governor would be disappointed if I didn't have a sign, okay? Now, I want to introduce you to some of Polk County's finest, okay? These all have visited the county jail, and they did it because of their rank stupidity, all right? So, Matthew Johnson, you know why he dialed 911? Because he said, no, I don't have an emergency, but I'm hungry. Well, listen, we are not Uber Eats, but we are jail eats, right? So we took him to the county jail and fed him and charged him criminally for abusing the system. I want to highlight just a moment. When you dial 911 with a false call, with a swatting call, you're not only taking up the resources and a phone line for somebody who has a real emergency, but you have deputies and police officers and fire and EMS rushing to you thinking you need help. And at that moment in time, for those moments in time, those units aren't available to save your life, to save someone else's life. That's why we've got a visionary with our governor that says, hey, we've got to do things differently. We've got to make things better. You know, the governor's told me, you know, Grady, we're either moving forward or we're moving backward. You can't rest in neutral. That doesn't happen. But how about this lady? She says, oh, dials 911. She says, I'm armed with a knife. We've got a home invasion. And she said, oh, just kidding. I made it all up. I just made it all up. Or how about Twanda Neal here? We stopped her. She had a warrant for child neglect with great bodily harm. The deputy explained to her, ma'am, you got to go to jail with me. She said, I don't like what you're saying. I'm going to dial 911 and get another deputy. He said, ma'am, I wouldn't do that if I were you because that will add additional criminal charges. Well, now we have energy behind those charges because of the new legislation. But I love this one. You know, this is a guy who dials 911, oh, Richard Ramey. He dialed 911. He said, I'm high on meth. Dispatcher said, yes. And he said, I shot him. We responded thinking we were going to a life-saving event to arrest a person armed that had just shot someone. Turns out he was telling us the truth. Oh, he was high on meth. But he shot up his own house 29 times. Now, if you're in the roofing business, you probably like that. But the rest of us didn't. So at the end of the day, we appreciate the legislature passing the legislation, but we couldn't have done it without our governor. So, Governor, thank you for providing leadership every day. And as I close, Ryan Petty's a dear friend of mine. I'm on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission with him. And we have seen this commission do wonderful things. It was an honor that they used our Sentinel program and transposed that into the Guardian program across the state of Florida. And Governor, thank you for giving me that credit for that. But some of my SWAT team and my folks out here were the ones that crafted that plan for us. You see, our goal every day is to keep you safe, to make Florida the best state in the union to live in, where you can thrive and prosper, where your children can play outside. That's why our crime's at a 53-year low. But it's at a 53-year low because of Governor Ron DeSantis and his proactive measures to keep every Floridian and every visitor safe in the state of Florida. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, the last place you want to be is on a picture that Grady Judd holds up. The second to last place is to have to try to follow him. So, but that's my job today. Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. Commissioner Diaz, appreciated your words here. Members of the legislature and my dear friend, Sheriff Judd, thank you. Look, Governor DeSantis has once again demonstrated what strong, principled leadership looks like when it comes to protecting Florida schools. With each new piece of school safety legislation, and this is number 7 since Parkland, there's been a new piece of school safety legislation every year. Florida is sending a clear and uncompromising message. School safety is not optional. It is a priority, a responsibility, and a shared duty at every level of government. I want to thank the legislature who passed this year's bill, as I think the last several, unanimously. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that transcends party, and it's about protecting our kids. So thank you to the legislature for doing that. You know, I was recently up in Wisconsin speaking at a school board training, and I got asked a couple of questions constantly. The first one was, hey, what do you think about Wisconsin? Do you like it? Of course, I said, yes, Wisconsin is absolutely beautiful, and I thanked them for their warm welcome, and I thanked them for their warm weather, and they said, yeah, isn't it unseasonably warm here? And I said, it must be, but you know what? We call that February in Florida. So, the second question I got asked was about our Guardian program. What can we do to implement the Guardian program in our state? And I talked about it takes leadership. It takes leadership from the legislature. It takes leadership like with our governor. So you've got to start there. And I'm grateful that this legislation strengthens that Guardian program and enhances the campus security measures that are already in place. And it's because of the governor's unwavering commitment to action over rhetoric. We could talk about school safety, or we could do something about it. Under his leadership, sheriffs, school boards, and principals across the state understand that safety is not a political issue, it's a moral imperative, and they've all found a way to work together. Beyond physical security, I'll just mention this, the governor has prioritized restoring order and education and academics to our schools. For too long, we've had federal policies that have pushed leniency over accountability, creating unsafe learning environments. And Florida took a different path a couple of years ago, one that was rooted in common sense and with reforms like the Parental Bill of Rights that empower parents and protect the right of every student to learn in a safe, focused environment. Florida is leading the way. Commissioner Diaz talked about the Florida's first National Summit on School Safety. We had, as he mentioned, 20 states from across the United States come to learn what we're doing in Florida. They all marveled, without exception, at how do you guys get all this done? Well, it's leadership. Sheriff, I want to thank you personally for your unwavering voice on common sense safety reforms, and I want to thank our chair, Sheriff Galtieri, who has been, I don't know how many hours he's put in on school safety and how much work he's done, but he's been a voice for change that has been nothing short of marvelous. And Commissioner, I want to thank you for your unwavering commitment. As you came over from the legislature to be the commissioner, it's been an honor to work side by side with you to make sure we implement these laws that the legislature passed and the governor signs with fidelity. And last and certainly not least, I want to thank the Office of Safe Schools. These are the folks that aren't here today, but do the hard work and heavy lifting of training those 30,000 Florida educators on school safety. They're the ones that are checking in to make sure our schools have everything they need to be safe, and our school administrators know what needs to be done. Without their work, I don't know where we would be, and I want to thank that office from the bottom of my heart. Governor, this legislation and the movement behind it is proof of what's possible when state and local leaders work together with courage and conviction. And it's because we have a governor that leads from the front. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Blaise Ngoli. I'm a state senator. It's an honor to be here signing these three bills today. I want to thank Commissioner Diaz, Ryan Petty, Sheriff, for all your leadership in making sure that we're keeping our schools and our community safe. And Governor, I want to thank you for your continued leadership in what you're doing. I will tell you that the legislature, this governor, never rests. Every legislative session, every year that passes, we are constantly asking ourselves, what can we do better? And let's not ask ourselves that question. Let's identify it and let's put it in paper and pass it into law. And 7 years now, 7 straight years, another iteration of a bill to keep our kids safe in school was just passed. And I will tell you, the commitment from all of us is to make sure that we keep on identifying things that we can do better and keep on pushing the envelope, because the status quo will not cut it anymore. We have to stay ahead of the bad guys in order to keep our family, our kids, and our community safe. With that, I am one of the authors of the bill on swatting, and we didn't want to rest on our laurels with this also. And I want to thank people who have had input on this bill, Senator Wright, Senator Partington, making sure that we got this right. Look, it is obvious that we do not have enough deterrence in law to stop people from swatting, because these people continue to call 911, abuse the system, use precious resources from law enforcement, take away from the good work that our police and our sheriff's deputies are doing on the ground, and we're putting it someplace else. The deterrent in this, I believe, is to make sure that we have the enhanced penalties and to make sure that the people who are actually calling are actually paying not only time before a judge, but actually paying to put the communities back, because it is not fair. If you have somebody who is sitting there and all of a sudden, let's say that their house winds up getting shot up, or their door, their windows getting busted in, and then, you know, the person winds up with a misdemeanor, and then somebody's lived there literally have to pay for the freight of the damage that has been done to their house. This bill allows restitution, mandatory restitution, that the perpetrator pay to make sure that they put everything back together. So with that, I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for the legislators who helped get this passed. Thank you for everything that you do, Sheriff. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Senator Tom Wright from the East Coast of Florida. And I want to thank you, Governor DeSantis, for supporting this and share my concerns with all of you folks today on responding to a false emergency. As a much younger man, I was a paramedic and drove ambulances with lights and sirens on in heavy traffic. I know what it's like to try and thread that 9,000-pound vehicle through heavy traffic. I was also a canine volunteer for 2.5 years. We used cars, and when we made an emergency call, we backed up every officer in our community. When they got a call, we started rolling their direction. I tell you this because I know firsthand the hazards both the responding vehicle and the public are being subjected to. Not only has a false call put vehicles in jeopardy, but it's also put the public in jeopardy and the emergency responders. And as the sheriff said, some communities only have a few pieces of equipment. You may very well have the only ambulance, the only fire equipment, the only police car in that area that maybe is now tied up on a false call. So basically, I just want to share with you, I have no time for anyone who thinks it's funny. It's the right thing. It's not the right thing to do. You're putting the public in risk. You're putting our our sheriffs, our first responders at risk, and we can do better than this. So anybody that's watching this and thinks it's funny to do it, no. The governor has allowed us to put this bill together. I was a co-sponsor with Blaise and Golia, and I was very proud to do that because we need to do better and we need to live safely in this community. So thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, let's make it happen. All right. So, let's see. All right. First one is the swatting bill. I think it's the 21st, right? Yes. All right, who wants a swatting pen? Anybody? Okay, there you go. All right, so there's the swatting. Now we've got our, this is what with the medical conditions and the law enforcement tweaking that was requested. Do we have any youth here? Any kids? Like young kids who we can't trust with permanent markers because I have options. We got what? We got two. All right. Oh, you guys are old enough. Here. Anyone else? All right. So we've got that one. Now we've got the school safety. 21st May, I mean, you think it was middle of August, the way how hot it is right now. I mean, we have gotten a turn. All right, who wants, Ryan, you want one of these? Okay, anyone else? There you go. Anyone else? All right. So can I have you help for a sec? Here, hold that up. No, actually, you hold this one up. All right. Here's the false reporting. All right, here we go, guys. In the books. Good job, everybody. Thanks so much. Okay. Good job, man. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks so much. That's awesome. Well, good work. We've got some more stuff that's pending on my desk. I think there's some other stuff that is good, and we have some other stuff coming down the pike. And maybe even one day the legislature will produce a budget. We'll see. Hope springs eternal. Okay, any questions back there? Just understand what's going on here, because I think you guys kind of twist and try to create narratives. You had one state representative with a political agenda, and he has a political agenda to try to smear Hope Florida, to try to smear people associated with the administration. Even my wife, who's done a great job for this state, by the way, not just on Hope Florida. Not just on Hope Florida, saving taxpayers $100 million, getting 30,000 people off means-tested welfare. Show me someone else in this country that has been able to do that. Not just that, the Cancer Initiative and the Collaborative and the Innovation Fund. She obviously has experience with that. Also, she led the effort on school mental health. She worked with people like Ryan Petty on all this. You know how much she's ever gotten from anything she's ever done? Not one red cent. Not one. She has led an initiative to help people, and you have one jackass in the legislature, I'm sorry, it's true, who's trying to smear her, smear good people. And just understand what happened. He took documents and he dropped them in a prosecutor's office. That is not an organic investigation. That's a manufactured political operation. That's all this is. Somebody with an agenda dropped off documents, and that's all that custodian of records said. There is no basis to do an investigation on these facts. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that this is political. And I can tell you, she is more determined than ever to make a difference in the lives with Hope Florida. I'm more committed to Hope Florida than I've ever been. And I think that I'm used to the left and the media shooting and lying and doing all that. How pathetic is it that we have a Republican representative who's engaging in lawfare to try to advance a political agenda? It stinks, and everybody knows it. Well, one, I've already provided record funding for education for K-12 in budgets that I've signed since I've been governor. That's just a fact. Another fact is because I've worked with the legislature over the years, we've delivered billions of dollars in teacher salary increases. So we send money to the school districts. They also have money. They ultimately decide what they want to do with it. But what we said is, no, we're going to put strings attached to part of this money. You get it, but you got to spend it to raise teacher pay. And so we did last year $1.25 billion. This year in the Senate side, and I don't know what the House can do. Hopefully they'll accept it. In my budget, in the Senate budget, we went to $1.5 billion that can only be used for teacher salaries. Because with all due respect to some of these school unions, what we saw with our teacher categorical in the past is some of the school districts would not give the teachers the salary increases. They would withhold that as a bargaining chip to try to advance other things that the union wanted to do. Isn't your job to get your members more pay? Although since we did paycheck protection, a lot of teachers aren't joining these unions because they understand too many of them have gone partisan left, and that's wrong. So, but on the teacher shortages, that's a nationwide issue. A couple years ago, it's like people always wanted to go out to Florida. So that Florida has this many, and we looked and we're like, okay, well, that was below the national average, but we've done things to advance the ball even more. For example, we have different pathways for certification for veterans, which I think is really important. And we had somebody that said in one of the school unions, oh, someone serves in Afghanistan, what does that have to do with the classroom? I actually think it could do a lot in the classroom. I actually think that life experience can be invaluable. I think veterans can be role models for young kids. And so we've worked very hard on that. And we've done other things to create teaching assistants but raising the average minimum salary. When I became governor, it was just under 40,000. Now we got it up to close to 50,000, and that varies by district, but that's been something that we've been wanting to do. So you can look at the budget we did. We've been very supportive of K-12. I think it's important. I think that we'll be able to hopefully get that across the finish line because, you know, no one's done more for school choice as governor than I have, and I'm proud of that. And I think parents, regardless of income, should be able to pick the best school. And that may be at their local public school. Like I grew up in Dunedin, Florida. I went to Dunedin High School. Like, fine. It was good. I had no problem. But other people may not want to do that. Maybe they go to a different school in the school district. Maybe they go to charter school. Maybe they go to private school. All of that, I think, is great, and the money should follow the student. I believe in that. But I also would tell people who believed in school choice, you know, and I understand why they would feel this way, because school choice really started, you see like these schools in Chicago that are just like terrible schools, and like they wanted to just shut those down and send all the kids to private, which in that sense, maybe that would have been better. But what I try to remind people is most people in Florida, most will send their kids to a public school by choice, even if you give scholarship. And that's true now. We have more kids on scholarship, 500,000 plus, than any state. I think than all states combined, we have more school choice probably, right? Which is great, and I'm proud of that. But we have how many students? A million plus, 2 million students. We're at the 3 million students now. Man, I'm pretty good with the numbers, but some of these so you know, you still have the vast majority, and we have 400,000 in charter schools, but you still have the vast majority are in their school districts. So I said, you know what? I'm going to support school choice, but I'm also going to support the school districts. I want to have good teachers in the school districts. I want to have good programs there. And that's exactly what we've done. So I'm working on it. I know we got a lot of support in the Senate initially on their budget requests, and I think we're going to be able to get it done. But what I'd also say is this. Part of the reason Florida, so we were, I think, number 2 in 4th grade reading and top 10 in 4th grade math. We've done a lot on early learning, which I think is important. But it's not just money. It's the approach that you're taking. It's making sure you're respecting parents' rights, making sure you have solid curriculum. All those things really go into it. I think one of the reasons why some states that used to have top education and now are close to the bottom, I think it's because they've taken their eye off the ball. They're pursuing political agendas in the classroom. They're having these school unions promote partisan agendas, and it's wrong. And that's not the way kids are going to learn more. So we have the right approach, and I'm happy to fund it. But I also want to be clear to people, some of the most lavishly funded schools in this country are some of the worst performing schools in this country. So it isn't just a matter about throwing money. Yeah, I want to fund, I want to increase salaries for teachers, I want to recruit good people to be in the classroom, but I also know you got to have the good policy too. Yes, sir. Well, here's what they're doing, what this representative is doing, is he's just trying to create static, right? Nobody was biting on what he was doing. He's literally going around begging people to take these documents. Now that's odd. That's typically not how anything would work. So the whole thing's a political construct. I think people saw that. They made all these representations, and then when people saw the underlying documents, they said, wait a minute, you're not being honest with it. So utilizing the legislative committees for lawfare and political activism is wrong, but it's certainly wrong for a state representative to try to enlist a local attorney's office into trying to advance this representative's political agenda. And it is a political agenda designed to smear Hope Florida. This representative has cast aspersions at the Attorney General of the state of Florida. He threatened some of the witnesses for some of these nonprofits that he asked to come before the committee. This is what we would call